There. Oh,
Think we're good.
yeah, just gotta get my things up so I can read them properly. Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 418 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast that has nothing to do with the Super Bowl or T Swizzle in Canada, recorded February 12th, 2024.
T-Swizzle, that's the first time I've heard that one. That's pretty awesome. Anyway, we need your help to support Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
Excellent. That brings us to our favorite segment of the show. What are we drinking? Normally we would start with Liz as is tradition, but she is not here. So, Pierre, what are you drinking, sir? And something you've done off of the Patriot Challenge.
Drinking whiskey from Pepsi per normal. Patriot Challenge, getting my water in. Haven't been reading as much as I would like as of yet this year, but still on the Audible train wagon. More Audibles and radio and everything. So Audible books and everything. So that's been going good, and practicing some skills. Still doing the plumber, electrician, the drywall, the framer, the flooring thing, because we're not done renos and drywall sucks.
Yes, they never seem to end.
No. But other than that, it's all going good. What about you, Ian?
Well, I like to say I was drinking something a little more alcoholic than this, but yeah, it's just literally the half-empty bottle of water that I have on my desk and green tea, 'cause that's all I had time for. I literally had to rush to make the podcast. Patriot stuff. Well, obviously with the empty water glass, that means I've been keeping up with my water challenge. A lot of public speaking lately. We were just talking about that before the show. 3 podcasts in 2 days, and meeting up with fellow patriots and like-minded individuals. It seems over the last week or so.
Yeah.
A couple
Sure.
meetups.
Ian graced us with his presence.
Nice.
It's good.
Yeah, that was good. And then other than that, just the usual walking and today working on wiring, just like Pierre, but it was with a little more frustrating denouement there because unfortunately I could not fix the problem. So not yet, anyway. What was you, Gavin?
Around.
I'm drinking Signal Hill and Pepsi Zero this evening, as per usual, although they were out of the cherry Pepsi Zero, so it's just regular Pepsi Zero. Patriot Challenge, yeah, drinking my water, getting my reading in. Um, been kind of all over the place with work lately, so practicing packing and active listening because I was at meetings with suppliers, also practicing restraint because I was at meetings with suppliers.
Pretending to look interested
Yeah.
while not trying to kill them is important, you know.
Yeah, especially when like they recently split out the businesses into like gas and diesel, but they have us uh, all in one meeting together. So I have to hear all the diesel people talk about things, and I'm like, I have nothing to do with this. So like half of the meeting is literally not for me, but I'm still in the room and trying to not look completely disinterested.
Unimpressed.
Yeah, and just like on my phone because it still looks bad, but yeah. Also, working on some wiring myself. Need to run some wires for my new ham radio for listening purposes only.
For now.
And all that. Yes, they finally sent me my programming cable, so was playing around a little with that to make sure it works. Now I need to run the antenna cables and install the antenna and do all of that fun stuff. So it's the do I drill through the concrete or do I get one of those funny bendable window flat wire things and so on and so forth. But that's a problem for the nerds on the other chat or the other podcast there that will
Drill through
spur
concrete.
their autism on.
Oh, we will happily spur gut for you as much
Yeah.
as you want on that.
Excellent.
Or if you'd like to give your opinion to Gavin, we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Version of the show is available on iTunes.
Some upcoming events, Resident 4-Day March, May 9th, 12th, 2024. If you like walking long distances, much like the hobbits in Lord of the Rings, join us. You can join us remotely too. You don't have to physically. You could walk anywhere you are in the world. It's a good time.
And you don't even have to throw a ring in the fire at the end of it. You can
You
just,
don't know, but you can if you want.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good times. Walking long distances. Do it because doing hard things with your friends or something.
Well, I haven't even looked yet on the site. I'm assuming it's still like a minimum. The minimum effort is like a 4-day, 10 kilometers per day thing, or is it higher?
Well, no,
than
you
that?
can literally
10
just
kilometers
do
total
10 kilometers,
over the 4 days.
which is
Oh,
like a super low T effort.
That's a pretty low T effort. Yeah.
I was going to say that if you're going to do it, you should at least do 10 kilometers in one day, but that is the minimum is 10 kilometers at some point over those 4 days.
Yeah.
But it goes up to like 40 kilometers a day for 4 days to get the top one. If you go above that, like you don't get anything special other than bragging rights. But don't let that discourage me from doing 60 kilometers a day for 4 days if you can. Like bragging rights are important because everything is a contest.
That's right. And if you're in second place, you're just the first loser, right?
Exactly. Speaking of losers, whoever could have predicted this? The total cost of ArriveCan, impossible to determine due to poor record keeping.
I think it's safe to say it goes into the 9 digits, though, does it not?
I would
Oh, yeah.
say that it goes to infinity digits, but yeah, I mean, this is, the Auditor General, has her report and everything, and it's determined that due to poor financial record keeping, they can't tell. So the government, who like their only piece of this really was to just like keep financial records of who they gave money to.
The only thing the government said is, hey, we need an app that does this. And someone else did something, and then they cut the check for it. And they still shit the bed.
Yeah. So they have found that the Canadian Border Service Agency, the Public Health Agency of Canada, and Public Service and Procurement Canada repeatedly failed to follow good management practices in the contracting, development, and implementation of the ArriveCan application.
So how many people became multimillionaires because of this app, and how many of them are Liberal Party members?
But we don't know because we didn't keep
I would
track of
say
the
that this is a pretty decent overlap.
And there's probably like a Venn diagram that's almost a circle.
Yeah, it's just like there's a little. Yeah, if anything, it's like it looks like it's just like a ring because the inner circle is almost the same size as the outer circle, and just the outer circle is the people that probably just like don't vote because they're too young or too old, but
Yeah.
are still part of a liberal family because they were just like, oh, we got to give money to our kids, so like they can't vote yet, but somehow they still helped develop this app.
What gets me though is like if literally Hitler Harper had developed this app and spent money like this, it would be the end of his
Yeah.
regime. They'd be calling for an
Well, yeah.
election, the whole thing. And basically, right now, after this came out, the media's like, these things happen, and that's the end of it.
I like this quote. This is probably the first example that I have seen such a glaring disregard for some of the most basic and fundamental policies and rules. They're not even hiding it anymore.
And it
I
won't
guess
even
you don't
say
have to hide it when you can't find the records of it, but like, yeah.
but it won't even sync the regime. And that's what gets me is like this literally will be swept under the rug in a week from now. Nobody will remember.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. Like it's beyond cult status now. It's just like, and I wouldn't even call it a Banana Republic because I mean Banana Republics at least everybody knew they were corrupt, but there's still people out there.
Yeah, well, and there was usually 2 sets of books, the actual books and the ones they showed everyone. So at least they were accounting for things. They just were lying and showing the wrong ones. But yes, she also had to say that she is deeply concerned by what this audit didn't find.
And I mean, so all that's troubling, but like, is anything going to come about it? Like, is anybody going to be held accountable? Is there going to be, I mean, trust me, I'm the last person that's going to say, let's put another thing in motion to make sure that like we keep track. But like this is my money being spent frivolously, right? My money, my daughter's money, my grandkids' money being spent just on whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would like to see where it went, whether I agree or disagree. Like, I just want to see what it
Well,
is at the
yeah.
end of the day, right? Like, I mean, obviously, I have no say in what they do with it. Like, they're just gonna do whatever. But like, I want to be able to keep track of it and keep,
Yeah.
or at least understand that per capita of people living, it costs $60,000 per person for this app, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna do anything
Well, so we
other
do
than
have some
enrage me.
figures. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to hear some figures here, the CBSA said previously that the development of this app would cost an estimated $54 million to create it.
I don't
The
understand how.
Auditor General estimates that the cost was 59.5 million. But that's based on the data that's available. And given that the vast majority of data is not available, they can't determine. So they already know that they're over budget based on what they have seen, but with how terrible, everything was accounted for, there's no way that it was less than that. It's got to be way, way more.
And this is literally an app that a first year intern in a computer science degree program, unpaid, could work at the Parliament Hill and make that app
Yeah.
up in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about a fucking 18, 17-year-old that just knows
Yeah.
computers and programming could have made this. Now,
Yeah.
like, I was never fortunate enough to use the ArriveCAN because I was told I'm not responsible enough to travel. Like, was it a really good app?
Oh
No,
no.
it was terrible.
Oh no, it was horrible. It was so
It
horrible.
didn't work a lot of the time. Even then, like the percentage of people using the app, even though it was mandatory, was still really low. I used it the one time, and fortunately for me, I didn't have to use all of the things in it where I was submitting paperwork and things like that. I got to be exempt status for the one time I crossed the border, and he reluctantly had to key in my exemption code.
And so,
But
speaking of exemption codes, in the course of my job, I had to generate an exemption code every time I crossed the border. And at the time, I was crossing the border probably at least 10 times a week. And it got to the point where the ArriveCAN was so bad and so unreliable that they said just generate a code and use the same code over and over again, which totally negated the whole purpose of the app because then
yeah,
there's no tracking. And not only that, but never once did they record it. I'd flash a picture or I'd flash a screenshot at them, and they're like, "Yeah, good enough." So
yeah,
that code that had to be generated to be linked to that flight to everything else was no longer being even recorded, let alone verified or anything else. It
yeah.
was
So
crazy.
they're saying here that 18% of invoices submitted by outside contractors that worked on the app didn't have sufficient supporting documentation to accurately determine the cost of the project. The
Yeah.
report also notes that CBSA has estimated that of the 59.5 million estimate, 12.2 million of that could have been some unrelated project.
Like, that's a significant percentage.
Yeah.
This should be the biggest scandal of the freaking decade. I mean, and we're still talking about Bev Oda's orange juice.
Yeah.
And that was a $12 deal or $20 deal, whatever it was.
Which is outrageous for an orange juice.
Which is indeed outrageous
Yeah,
for orange juice,
it's
but
it's
you can buy a
outrageous
lot
for
of
an
orange
orange.
juices for an app, it seems. Like I
Yeah,
would yeah.
$12 versus $12 million that they can't even tell you whether it was for this app or not.
Yeah. The double standard is just it's mind blowing. And
Yeah.
again, the thing is everybody knows they're gonna walk because of it. Like they're just
No,
this is
well, if it
Like,
saved just one life.
right? Like, can we bring back like certain things that holding people to a certain standard where there are actual penalties for something other than a news article? And then,
I mean,
don't get me wrong, I love getting intoxicated on Mondays and chatting with you guys and having something to talk about. But like, why is nobody being held accountable for this?
because we're not allowed to tar and feather anymore. I think
Yeah,
if we
I'm
could,
okay taking it even further than that, as I've stated many times before. Like, let's take it back even worse than that. Like, you shit the bed this bad, you get hung by your fucking toes until your
well,
toes fall off and you fall on your head and break your neck, and now you're no longer a parasite on fucking society.
Well, I think that's and
So
yeah,
Pierre's
yeah,
comments are not representative of the panel as a whole, and his
and this is
They
for
are. You
entertainment
guys just
only.
don't want to admit it live. There's a
This
big
is just for
difference between that.
entertainment
Yeah.
only, of course. But I think
Yeah.
you brought up
Yeah.
a good point earlier, Gavin. I mean, it was Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So bread and circuses keeps everybody busy enough they don't even notice what's going on. So when a story like
Oh yeah.
this breaks, they're still talking about Tay Tay and Kelsey there or whatever his name is,
Yeah.
Kelsey, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway,
The only one I care about in that relationship is her.
I guess sure. I laugh. Not that it's contrived at all. I mean, the fact that
No.
he did a big commercial for Pfizer, and she's a Pfizer sponsored person, and so is the Super Bowl. And anyway, never
Yeah.
mind. But anyways, moving along. Like, yeah, that's just keeping distracted enough they don't even pay attention to stories that actually matter like this.
Yeah.
And which reminds you, of course, of the fall of other certain empires that were large and powerful and stuff.
Yeah. We just need someone playing the fiddle and setting fires everywhere.
Yeah.
We're good. Yeah. Well, on to some slightly more localized news. The Ford government has lost an appeal over its controversial wage restraint legislation, Bill 124. So the law, which capped public sector wages at 1% per year for 3 years, was introduced by the conservative government in 2019 in a bid to limit public sector spending.
I agree.
Yeah, the law impacted over 2,500 public sector collective bargaining units in Ontario and triggered a court challenge by a collection of unions and labor groups.
So the court that is directly impacted by a 1% a year inflation thing decided that that was not cool because they were limited to 1% raises per year, so they just got rid of it.
Yes, that is exactly what that sounds like. I mean, like, public sector employees, I don't have the problem with them getting paid, and I don't have a problem with them getting paid the same as their
Adequately.
private sector counterparts, right? Like if you are in charge of a crown corporation or whatever, you should be paid as much as somebody that runs an equivalently sized privately owned business. Like I don't have a problem with that, right?
Yeah.
But when
I
you
totally
get to
disagree.
vote on if you get a raise or not, and that raise doesn't come out of like your business, it comes out of my pocket, that's when I
Yeah.
have problems. And so putting some caps on some of this stuff, I don't think is a
Like,
bad thing. I
technically,
mean,
technically it comes out of your pocket twice, right? Like you being a business owner in Ontario, you pay business taxes to the
yeah.
Ontario government. And then when you get a pay from your company,
Well,
you get taxed on that by the Ontario
well,
government.
yeah, but
as
like
well.
as a business owner, I get to decide what my salary is, right? Like,
Yeah, but right, like
and I
doesn't
don't
matter
have
if
to
you want to
vote
give
on
yourself.
it, but like my employees don't get to vote on what they get paid. I get to decide what they get paid because it comes
Yeah,
out of my pocket. So here we are, and it comes out of my pocket, but somehow these people get to decide what it is that they get paid, and it doesn't even ever go to the public. They just put a bill through, and it's never once been voted down. Like they're never like, you know what? I know groceries are
that's too
really
much.
expensive
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't
right
deserve a pay
now.
raise. We haven't done a good job this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at like, especially like federally this year, the last couple of years, how many days like the MPs have actually sat, which means like they're doing actual work. It's nothing like between like the spring break and the this break and the everything else and then shutting down because of that. Like they barely worked anything.
Yeah, like the
Like,
one time I will say that we should have put this out of province and sent it to fucking Quebec and let a judge in Quebec rule and say fuck Ontario and me stand behind a Quebec ruling. Like the one time we didn't do it.
Well, the problem is that because they're gonna look after each other, I guess for mutual benefit. There's no way the Quebec court would say fuck that when they do the Ontario court would do the same thing to them. So it was never going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, what's Quebec gonna send to fucking Ontario unless it's only an English fucking case? Like that, like I say that this should have been something that I got a letter in the mail, and because I paid taxes, I should be able to say like, hey, what do you think's a reasonable pay raise? That's how it stands. Like that's how you got into that fucking position. Why can't we vote your pay raise the exact same way as me saying you can be in power for 4 years?
so I just did some quick interning, and these figures might be wrong because quick interning, but it looks like the MPs only sit for 34% of the year.
And
Which
what's
is-
the base salary?
Like over 100.
But the funny
Fuck,
thing
I'm
is
in the
that
wrong business.
that's actually
Yeah.
still more days than teachers sit in classrooms.
Yeah. But like 34% of the year is them sitting, and they like that's insane.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I
mean, I
want the
guess that
pay. I don't
explains
want,
why, like, you know, a third of my income goes to pay for them to work a third of the year. So fuck, they
Yeah.
don't work the entire year, because there would go all of my money. But
Yeah.
yeah,
you'd have to
it's
pay
insane.
every 2 weeks. You have to figure out how to come up with $300 to give them.
Yeah.
If
Yeah, I
it
don't
works
think that
year-round,
this
but-
is like, if you don't like this, get a different fucking job. Go private sector where there is no cap.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
we're also
not only that, but
you're-
you earn what you deserve, or you are capable of
Yeah.
producing for the company, right? So if you actually create good value for the company, they're going to give you a raise.
Yeah.
If you don't, well, they probably won't have a job much longer.
And this is the problem with all the unions and everything, and how they've been so powerful over the years, and all this and that and everything else.
Because
It's
of the
like, well,
mob.
you've got to a point where like we can't afford this anymore. And if we keep giving you all of this stuff, also, like, what the fuck do you think causes inflation? Like, where do you think that money comes from? If we start paying these people more, it comes out of our pockets and everything else. And like, we don't get any value for it. This doesn't generate anything.
Yeah. No, you get a raise or a bonus or whatever when you figure out how you can balance the
Well,
budget.
Like, I mean, you know,
Right. Within
the
reason,
listeners
like
don't
I-
know this, but there was a thing that an acquaintance of mine posted on the internet where they're complaining about profits on companies and this and that and everything else. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, Starbucks made 24.56 billion in profits for 2023, which means it could give each of its 400,000 employees an $11,000 raise and would still have 20 billion in profits. But instead, workers rely on tips. Corporate profits are driving inflation. That's not how that works.
Right, and specifically the Starbucks one. So Starbucks went cashless a little while ago. So everything's on debit, credit, or what a lot of people do is they'll walk in and buy a gift card or a
Yeah.
card, but you know what? I put cash so they get paid and they put $100 on it. Well, they get to keep that $100 until you decide to spend it all. So technically, that's a profit for them. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't think a giant portion of it, but I mean, there are part of that
Well,
profit that's probably a bunch of money sitting on a card that just someone
Yeah.
hasn't used. My brother, he gets rewards, he gets this, he gets that. People go, so he's got like $300 at Starbucks. He's like, I don't go to Starbucks often. He's like once every like month, but he's like, but Starbucks on the back end, it's like, well, we made $300 profit just because he's sitting on $300. So them going cashless and having to
Yeah.
make everybody pay debit, credit,
But-
or getting gift certificates or cards or whatever. I was like,
Well,
can
the-
bump up those
but-
numbers. Like those can be fudged. a
Funny
little bit.
thing is, though, is that the people complain about them doing all of this and that and everything else.
Buy
But the easy
Starbucks every day.
solution is, yeah, if you don't like that they make money, don't fucking go there anymore. Don't give
Yeah.
them your money. Go somewhere else.
Yep,
Like,
make it a
they
whole.
had, whether I agree with their corporate structure or not and what they stand for and all that is a different thing. But like, at some point in time, somebody risked their livelihood and built this company.
Yep.
And took a chance and managed to grow it successfully. They might be greedy, I don't know,
Yep.
but don't give them your money then if you don't. But it's the same, like,
Yeah.
these unions
Well-
and everything have screwed everything up, and those are the people that are causing the inflation, is the government employees and all this bloated bureaucracy that are just like sucking out the money. Like, government doesn't create jobs. They can only create situations where business owners are in a favorable position to create jobs or not.
Yeah, any government job is a drain on the economy. And by the same token, your friend, I mean, like I think I mentioned on the chat there, did this same friend like vote for the government to spend taxpayer money, or actually to borrow money, to spend money on stuff like money with Pfizer for vaccines that are going to end up throwing away here anyways because they're outdated. And
Yeah.
that's
How much
probably a
are we
bigger
throwing away?
contributor to inflation,
Wait.
but yeah, Pfizer throws
Yeah.
big profits, but
You
it's
didn't get
got,
your 10 doses that are bookmarked for you?
well, come on, I'm only in my eighth. I mean, come on, give me a break.
Yeah. Yeah, 10. That's
He needs
ridiculous.
he needs
Yeah.
some recovery time between those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah. So
But
glad that we
it's
prepaid for 10 doses for everybody.
Yeah.
right. Like, yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's,
Voting to get the government to spend more money, that's going to cause your inflation. But these
Yeah.
people don't correlate their voting habits with inflation numbers.
Well,
So
no,
Wait,
because they're
we want
still the
inflation.
same people that are like, I want to raise minimum wage.
yeah,
Like,
fight for
that
20,
didn't
buddy.
that didn't
Yeah.
work last time.
Yeah.
No, and it puzzles me how nobody understands the simple concept of like if you want to raise minimum wage, like I'm not opposed to someone working somewhere, and not having the advantages or the drive to want to better themselves specifically to get something where um, they have extra money. But if someone is willing to get up, go do their 40 hours a week or whatever, yes, I 100% feel that they should not be a parasite on society. Everybody else that wants to be a parasite on society, we can hang them by their toes until they fall and break their neck, just like politicians. But we, but raising the cost of minimum wage, like I don't understand how nobody has realized that like we bumped minimum wage in Ontario up to I don't know whatever the fuck it is, but like we raised it up like $2-3 at one point where that put a financial strain on everything. And like, has anybody realized how much your groceries have gone up? Way more than what you're making. And has anybody realized that, you were making minimum wage, making $40,000 a year, and you've got this raise, and now you're making 52, and now you're in a separate tax bracket that I'm like, literally your take home money has gone down, but everything else has
Yeah.
gone up. Like it's
Oh yeah,
simple.
the government's won because they get more of your money, but you don't get to spend any more of your money.
No. And then they keep spending more of your money that they already don't have because they're not making more money to spend at local businesses or just entertainment purposes of any sort.
Well,
Right.
see, I think the most egregious offense for the government, though, when it comes to spending, is when they borrow money to send overseas for free, like to Ukraine or Israel, or they borrow money off China to give aid to China. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's gone stupid now. So
No, yeah, we've gone full clown world. But going along with that, Windsor police inspector pleads guilty, gets demoted for a year for making sexual comments to female staff. So
uh,
Ed Armstrong, a 25-year veteran, was charged with discreditable conduct under Ontario Police Services Act. So apparently he's been demoted for 1 year after pleading guilty for this, where he has been making inappropriate comments to female employees over the last 18 years.
So maybe we shouldn't only hang politicians by their toes.
Well, I'm just like, I get that, like the work, like I'm not excusing this guy and his behavior or anything that he has said. And I get that, like, things have changed in the workplace where something that may have been okay to say a very long time ago is not okay to say now, especially with having more and more women in the workplace. But you would think that
Half of them are men, but that's beside the point.
if this guy has been making inappropriate comments for 18 years and he pleads guilty to it, which means he agrees, I have been making shitty comments for 18 years, being demoted for a year. So like at the end of that year, they're going to just like promote him again.
Or he's at least eligible to be promoted, and whether that actually
it says
happens or
it
not.
says actually it says it's going to happen instantly.
Yeah.
I didn't read the whole article. I was kind of putting out some hopeful wishes out there, I guess.
Like this is insane. Like if he's guilty of something and he's been doing it for that long, like
Find me
should
any
they go
other
like
business.
if anything like a demotion for 1 year for every year that you have been a shitty person? Wouldn't that be more appropriate?
At bare
Well, he's
minimum, but
got-
like find me. Go ahead, Aiden.
Well, he's got 25 years in. So at that point, if he's agreed he's been a shitty person and he's been doing it for years, I think it's time to retire.
Yeah.
But I can't. But of course, I can't help but the fact that the article points out that he's a DEI hire. The article points that out, not me.
Yeah.
which I can't help but think that perhaps maybe the outcome would have been different if he wasn't.
Ooh, that's
Oh,
spicy.
well,
Let's
are you
not go
trying
white
to
guy.
say that they
It's got,
wouldn't have charged him at all, Ian?
No, I'm just saying that
they would have fucking
they,
kicked his ass out.
they might
Or
have
the
kicked his
exact
ass out.
opposite? Yeah. The
Yeah.
exact opposite. So you're trying to say that the privilege, at least in this instance, does not exist, or at
So
least it goes opposite to what you
Oh,
might
there's
once say.
privilege, but it's just
Yeah.
not what you expect.
It's DEI privilege. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've got a theory. So let's bookmark this for a year from now. Let's find a white guy to do stuff inappropriately for a year. That's in the same police force and does the same stuff as this guy has done for 18 years. And let's see how that outcome comes in a year.
Well, as luck would have it, in the same article, another officer pleaded guilty last month, and he's a 21-year veteran, and he admitted to making unwanted and inappropriate comments. Yeah, so he was demoted to fourth class constable instead of sergeant, and eventually he'll regain his sergeant status. So there you go. I mean, like they're doing the same thing, but by the same token, though, he should be kicked out the door too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is
Like,
he white?
You don't know that, but we can assume by the last name, yes, probably. He's probably Polish.
If you had to guess.
Ah.
Yeah.
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 But
okay.
it's just crazy. Like, I mean, like, how are we supposed to have like better relations of the public and the police? Because I understand that there are certain communities that don't get along with the police.
Yeah.
Yet we continue to give them passes.
On shitty situations and shitty behavior.
Yeah. Like, just ridiculous.
And am I
I-
the only
I-
one that find it kind of weird that the second part of this article where they talk about another officer pleaded guilty and then they have a little ramble and then the pictures of the first officer they're talking about?
Yeah, but there's a hyperlink though with the other one, and looking at the other
Yeah.
one, yeah, it's what you'd expect. He looks like he likes his pierogies.
Fucking
doesn't?
pierogi assholes.
Pierogies are delicious. I could totally eat some of those.
I mean,
I
they
like
could
them
be-
too. I'm just saying.
They can be delicious. Doesn't mean they're not fucking douchebags.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna skip over that one about the hotel, but apparently if you live in a small town, maybe owning a hotel is a good investment for you because you can just rent
Yes.
out the rooms as long-term stays because nobody can afford houses. But the next article here, which I don't get how this happens because there's been a ban on pistols for a while, but
Yep.
2 people have been charged with firearms offenses after Brampton residents raided. So a Mississauga man
Oh
and
my
a
God, that's
Brampton woman are facing firearms related charges after a weekend bust by Peel Regional Police officers. They executed a search warrant on Sunday at the residence in Brampton and allegedly found a loaded firearm and ammunition. And if you look at the picture they've got in here,
That's a
that
Glock
looks to me like a
26.
Glock 26, which is a prohib in Canada. That's super weird. Although I guess technically you could still get a Glock 26, but it has to have the Canadian Glock 19 barrel in it. So it looks really awkward and weird. This doesn't have that, which makes it prohibited.
Which means it would have been illegal since 1995.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Which is
which
weird
clearly
because
this one,
yeah,
this is a Gen 3, so it obviously is newer than that. So it's certainly not a Gen 1, which would be the only ones that were around in 95. So that tells me this one was smuggled into Canada.
yeah. That, and oddly enough, the person that had this was on a 10-year firearms prohibition order. He was
how's that
also
possible
out
then?
on bail for robbery with a firearm.
So maybe we should do a 15-year ban. Maybe that would have solved this.
Maybe. I mean, it doesn't matter that he was still in that period, but yeah, maybe it would have worked.
Yeah, I mean, why
Well-
not? Like throw shit and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
What could have gone wrong?
that's an interesting name. That explains quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, no surprise there.
At the
Yeah,
name?
no, I mean, it's just, this is ridiculous. Like, you've got something that, like, legal gun owners haven't legally been able to purchase in this country, somehow finding its way into the country, and a guy that already had a 10-year weapon prohibition was then arrested again and is out on bail for robbery with a gun and gets arrested again. So this is the third time he has been arrested. And every single time it seems that there has been something to do with weapons. Yet, like, we haven't just decided to lock this guy up for good, and
No.
somehow the people on this panel are the problem with, the violent crime on the rise and everything.
That's
But
because we're
like,
straight white men.
yeah, but this guy is just like probably going to get off on bail again and probably end up going right back to his buddy and buying another illegal pistol.
Because when everything's
And
illegal, everything's legal.
it's true. I mean, I don't
So
blame him for that, but like
Yeah, and
maybe
so
make better choices. Yeah.
thing is, like, you could ban him for life, you can ban him for whatever you want, but clearly he does not have any regard for the laws. So therefore, proof again, gun laws do not work.
Yeah.
So
and the crazy part is like during this whole thing, so they don't say why the search warrant was executed, which I mean, if you're gonna put out a thing saying like, hey, look what we found during a search warrant, I mean, maybe put why you were doing a search warrant at this person's residence.
Well, they may not
and
be
they're
able to
just for
say,
information.
but I would
I mean,
imagine that like
why not?
if you've watched the well, because if they put it out and say
That they
that he
caught him
did it,
after?
well, if you say that he did it, then like that could be like, oh, well, he hasn't been proven guilty yet and all the things. So
Yeah, but we were going there for just something.
I
But
know.
this
But I
article's so
imagine it would
short.
have, yeah, I imagine it has to do with like a lot of the like break-in robberies and everything that have been happening in and around the area, where like you can see all the doorbell camera footage and everything that's been coming out, where you will see a group
Yeah.
of armed hoodlums like trying to kick in a front door.
So
And
does that mean we
so
can have castle law back? Or
we
even
never
just
had
in
it.
general? Yeah, like can we start now? Like, I'll give you your
Well, I mean,
raise.
it would make sense to have that in this country, especially given that like this particular type of crime is on the rise, where
Yeah.
like a group of 4 or 5, fighting aged males will show up at your door at night or in the wee hours of the morning
Yeah.
and
Kick.
literally try to batter your door down. And you can see in the footage that one of them or more of them will have a pistol already in hand.
Yeah.
But, in
So
any real
if we don't want to
country,
have
yeah,
if we don't want to have castle laws, because we at least have suppressors, and then I'll figure out how to hide the body myself.
I mean, that would be a start. But like, it's just insane. It's like, if I looked at my doorbell camera and saw that, like in any real country, I would be able to, grab the revolver from under my pillow and just go to the front door and start shooting through the front door at them. But
Fucking John
because
Wayne
we
that shit.
don't live in a real country, I would
Yeah. Yeah. I have to wait call
not
911 and just
not
hope
be
for the best.
allowed to go to the gun safe and unlock the gun safe and then unlock the gun that was in the locked gun safe and make a
Mhm.
threat to them. I would have to call the police.
And also go somewhere else to get the ammo first, because you can't store them together.
Well, you still like, despite the fact that our law allows the provision for use of lethal force in defense of your life, if they have not entered my home and are not threatening me, there's a good chance I might still get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So even if they enter my home and they have a gun in their hand, if they're not pointing the gun at me and are not making threats towards me in this country, there's still a good chance that if I shot them, I would get in trouble,
Right. So
even
as
though
long
they're
as
in my home.
the guy holding the gun isn't the one charging at you with a baseball with intent to hurt you, you can't shoot.
I mean, and even
Like,
then, if he has a gun and he's walking towards me, if
is
he
that
keeps
enough?
saying things like, I'm not going to hurt you, do I have like, so this is the problem with living in a not real country.
And I just love how at the bottom of the article they say, "Please urge anyone with information to call a number and an extension." I'm like, information for what?
Yeah.
Like, you haven't given us any information in this article other than you caught someone and you're going to probably release them by the end of this week, right? With like a 15-year ban now, and hopefully that fucking sticks, or maybe 20. Like, we'll just double down on it.
Well,
Like, the article has absolutely nothing of why this person was taken into custody. You know, what it might be
Well,
related to, where it may or may not
my
be
guess,
about
my guess
the,
is a robbery,
yeah,
an armed robbery of
yeah,
some
the
kind, because
armed
that seems
robberies.
to be
Yeah.
their
So if,
MO, but
you know, hey, he was arrested in suspicion of this, that, but like just at the bottom, like, hey, if you have any information, call us. Like information about what at the end of the day?
yeah.
Like you've given me no reason to want to give you a call or, you know, give you information because I have a feeling I have better resolutions than anything you guys can do because the amount of paperwork and stuff you need to be able to do anything. And then you're just gonna let, you know, douchebag McGee back out with a little slap on the
Yeah.
wrist saying like, okay, well, you can't do that again, eh? And,
Well,
you know, parasites of society just tend to follow what they know and,
well,
you know, not tend to change and be contributing members of society.
ridiculous. This is a little throwback to an article that we talked about earlier. We've been kind of pushing this one off for a little bit, but I figure it's a good time to do this because we've still got a little bit of time left here. So if you guys remember, there was the kangaroo sighting in like Oshawa, and the cops had to go and like tackle the kangaroo, and one of them got punched by the kangaroo.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
guys remember
Best
that?
video
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, like in like January, like early January.
Yeah.
Well, apparently there were more reports, and this is again early January, so like January 11th, but we're just getting to it now. Um, there were more reports of a wayward Southern Ontario kangaroo in and around Lambton County. So there was a lot of reports coming in about that, which were determined to be a hoax. So the London Area Police or OPP have basically said that like stop calling this in. You know, if you do, you're going to get a mischief charge for calling in a kangaroo sighting in an area where there is no kangaroo. Interestingly enough, though, apparently the rumors there started because there was a different kangaroo that was actually spotted in Chatham and Kent area. Um, so people were using
Yeah.
one kangaroo sighting, which is weird because this is two actual kangaroo sightings in Ontario in January, like within days of each other.
Well, maybe you guys have a feral kangaroo problem you're just not aware of yet. You know, feral hogs is
Australia,
just so
How
last
much for
year,
a
right?
tag? How
yeah,
much for a
Australia
tag?
has started shipping their kangaroo problems to Ontario.
I thought it was an emu problem out there.
I mean, yes, they have a lot of problems out there with invasive species. The Great Emu War um,
Mm.
did sort of curb some of that problem, but I mean, ultimately the emus did win the Emu War and
Right.
overran the military's position.
Turns out the rabbit-proof
Yes.
fence wasn't rabbit-proof.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and like the feral cat problem and everything else that's now a problem because they started taking care of the dingoes. And, you know, I guess nobody realized that when like the dingoes all disappear, the things that the dingoes eat thrive.
Oh,
It's
isn't that
almost like
crazy?
government programs are incapable of managing wildlife.
Yeah, they've had a lot of those disasters there though, where they're like, man, we have this like cane beetle infestation that's ruining our sugarcane crops. Let's bring in cane
Cane
toads to get them.
toads.
But the beetles live on the top of the sugarcane. The toads live
Toads live on the
on the
bottom.
bottom.
But they kill snakes really well, it turns out.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
you lick them, you get high.
Nice.
Well, you don't actually. I've seen people do it, but like you don't want to step on them because you get like a weird, gross kind of chemical burn from whatever's on the skin. It's not good for you.
Yeah, and the good snakes are dying because they're so big that they're choking on the cane toads. And I think they're mildly poisonous too, or something.
Yeah. So there's no natural predator for them, so they go like crazy. So now there's like a bounty on cane toads, so you can go and like bring them a sack of toads for a nickel a piece, kind of a thing. You know, and then yeah, they started to like you used to be allowed to like poison the dingoes by leaving like just poison traps out, but then it was being too effective, so the feral cat population was on the rise, and the feral cats are worse than the dingoes because the feral cats can get through all the dingo fences and go and slaughter your livestock, like your chickens and stuff like that.
So now you get a government grant to
Yeah.
breed dingoes.
So now they're just, it seems, sending their kangaroos to Ontario, which makes sense. I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
they'll
I
go
just-
fisticuffs with the politician.
yeah, I just found this absolutely ridiculous that we've had now 2 kangaroo sightings that were real kangaroo sightings. A third one, but the third one was not real. It was just people messing around. But two out of 3 ain't bad, I guess.
Well,
I mean,
judging by the
that's-
pictures I see, aren't kangaroos basically just deer that went to prison?
I mean, it certainly
Got
looks
all
like it.
got all jacked up.
Yeah. Bro, do you even lift?
I mean, I wouldn't want to take a right hook from one.
Yeah. We've got one more old one here. Where are we at? Yeah, let's do one more. BC police secretly took DNA from Kurdish community in teacup sting to solve murder. Another old
Yeah.
article here from mid-January here. So undercover police investigated the murder of a 13-year-old girl in British Columbia. They disguised themselves as tea marketers to secretly collect the DNA of about 150 Kurdish community members, court has revealed. Like, I'm all for putting bad people behind bars.
Yes. Or hanging them by their toes.
Yeah. But like you still have to respect the rights of like common people, like innocent people. And I would say, as much as I dislike it, the rights of innocent people trump the ability to put away bad people.
I agree, but in this scenario, I will say they weren't in the wrong.
No,
So
absolutely they were.
like tea makers, you go somewhere and they drink out of a cup and they throw the cup out, and then you take that cup. You're on your
No.
own. If you're a shitty person and you've done some things, take all your shit with you and burn it. So like,
Well,
you know,
yeah,
like
it's interesting. Like I can't imagine 2 police officers going, "Hello, fellow Kurds." You know, it's like the kid with the skate or Steve Buscemi
Yeah.
with the skateboard meme,
Yeah.
right? But
yeah.
and
But-
so they found out actually, but it wasn't because they found the shitty person. I think they found the brother of the shitty person via this thing. So even the DNA they collected and used as evidence was not from the shitty person.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But that-
I don't.
Okay,
They-
so let me put it to say you and I
ahead.
go out
Yep.
for a beer
Yep.
and your DNA gets taken
hmm
because they're investigating something. Even though, are you okay with that?
Yeah. So far, yes. Depends if I'm getting ass raped in jail later.
Well, but like they're taking your DNA for no reason.
Right. So
Are you okay with
so,
people reading your mail?
So that's completely different.
How is it
Then-
different?
So I went to a bar. Excuse me. I went to somewhere, an establishment, and I took a drink and I drank out of the cup, and they took the cup to go wash it. But somehow I got interrupted. That's completely different. You cannot technically read my mail without consent or a.
But they
court
can't
order.
take that glass either because that glass belongs to the establishment.
Yeah,
Doesn't
so if the
belong to
establishment
police.
has no problem with it, right? So, right, you're talking about, okay, so the police show up and talk to the establishment and be like, hey, we think that guy's a douchebag and he might have done something. Can we get that glass? And the establishment is okay with it. Like, if
That's
I'm
a very slippery slope, though. So, like now that
but
they
it-
have your DNA,
right, but
But
it doesn't matter at that point. I willingly went somewhere and left my DNA somewhere. I had no problems taking this cup. So unless I walk in and the bar tells you like, hey, if someone comes up and says we want your cup, we're either going to give it to them or we're going to break it and set it on fire. Those are two
But-
different scenarios, right? One
but-
is breaking a law and one is not.
But again, you're missing the point. The fact that even the DNA they collected to use to get the conviction was not that of the actual perpetrator.
yeah. So it's
So
a different
even the
when-
person-
That still doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But it
no, it does
does.
because that person who's the brother of the bad guy is innocent of any crime.
Yeah,
He
and
did
he's not
So,
being
absolutely
charged.
so the problem is that there's no like they went out and done it, and the fact that they had to disguise themselves means that it was like they weren't just waiting for you to be out in public and taking advantage of you throwing out garbage.
Yeah.
They set up a sting to
Yeah.
intentionally get the DNA of random people
in the hopes,
in the hopes
They-
of catching them.
and,
Yeah,
right.
even in the hopes of catching a relative of the person who did something,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so they could prove a
and-
family connection.
That's no different than going, well, we know that the murderer lives on this block.
So let's
Let's
get,
open up their letters.
right, but that's different.
But it's not
Opening up a
though.
letter. Yeah, no, it is. So
How is it? It's not any different. This is
It's even worse because nobody knows that everybody knows if their mail's been read because it's been opened, right?
Yeah.
Nobody at that party knew that their
Yeah.
DNA got collected, so there's no informed consent.
And now
or-
what are they going to do with the DNA? How long do they
But you-
store it?
But you 90% of fucking people paid for DNA to be collected by doing 23andMe, Ancestry.ca. They spat in the
Yeah.
fucking tube. And now nobody wants to talk about that, all that information
But
being
so-
bought by a fucking company.
Oh
that
no, I
does,
talk about
you know,
that.
cocaine.
I think
Yeah.
that that's wrong. Like
Yeah,
when you
100%.
contract
So
with
that
them,
I don't agree with, right? That's
but that's
completely
also
different.
but that's also you. I mean, in that instance, I would say you're more like it's like you willingly spit in a tube to give them your DNA. You don't willingly
Yes.
go to a restaurant to give them your DNA. You go to them to buy a beer and you just happen to leave DNA behind because that's just how like
Yeah,
life
but I'm
works.
sorry, you can't be that. You can't not understand the fact that that is a thing that is possible.
I understand that it's possible, but what I'm saying is that that's wrong. I do
I
not
don't find
agree
it's
with
wrong.
that.
Okay, so what about listening to everybody's cell phone conversations to and filter through 10 million phone conversations to listen to the conversation where they talk about like
Yeah.
arranging a hitman. A bunch of people's phone calls got listened to. They didn't do anything wrong. They weren't perpetrators of a crime, but they had to listen to all those phone conversations
Yeah.
to get to that hitman. Is that correct?
No.
So
So,
there-
that's complete. That's different than me going somewhere in public and leaving my DNA. Whether I agree to that DNA being recruited, picked up,
It's
however you want to word it, by some
okay, but so
company.
they now have okay. You're okay with them collecting it. What
Well,
are you
I'm-
okay with them doing with it now?
Doesn't matter at that point. I willingly
Well, it
left
does.
it there.
Yeah,
No.
but okay, but it does matter. So do they get to keep your DNA on file for eternity? So
Well,
that
it doesn't matter. I willingly left it at that point, understanding the
But
concept
no.
that this could happen.
no, that is not a normal thing. Like
No,
there's
it's
no
not a normal thing, but it's a
okay,
thing.
when you go out into public, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in terms of someone taking your picture.
Exactly.
But there is a reasonable expectation that the cops are not going around collecting your DNA. While that is a thing that could happen, and generally if that is to happen because they're trying to ascertain something, there would be warrants that are issued to do this. Warrants are
Yes.
not issued blankly like this to go out and collect DNA from 150 different people that are random. They need to be like 80+% sure, I'm just picking a number out of thin air
Yeah.
here, that this is the person that is responsible and we're going to get DNA evidence. But even then, they would issue a warrant and have you come in, and then you would have to do it in the police station. They will not collect it randomly
Yeah,
to figure that out.
agree.
That's not how that happens. So this is them going out and pretending. So it's entrapment on top of it because they're doing this intentionally to trick people in order to get their DNA.
Right. Okay. So I mean, if it is entrapment, then that's case closed.
But-
Like even if you have that evidence, like you need to find something way different than for that to be possible. But I'm just saying, like, this is a thing that is possible. We all know it. None of
Yeah,
us want it
but-
to happen.
But
Right.
so
I'm not saying I
so is them
condone
using
what they did.
technology to read your emails.
Yeah, and I'm not agreeing to that without
But-
the proper documentation for it.
But you're agreeing to them to collect your DNA, which can be used in the same
I
way.
left the DNA
didn't,
that I
though.
left in a public space. I
Not
left it in a
intentionally.
public space. Well, unless I wipe a glass clean, me going to a bar
But you
and
don't. You do
eating
not
and ordering
consent.
wings. That fine. I agree that I technically didn't consent to it, but that's a thing that when you go out in public, that's a thing that most common people with a brain should understand. That is a thing I'm leaving behind, and this scenario can happen. Very unlikely. I'm not saying. I mean, maybe not after the conversation tonight. Me saying we should hang politicians by their toes, but it's a thing that is plausible.
Sure, it is.
I'm not saying this needs to be the new thing that
But-
every glass you order, you pay for a new glass, and every single glass goes to the fucking RCMP
But
to check for cold case files.
that's the problem with the thing. The minute that you say that you're okay with it, then
Yeah.
you're okay with that system, and then you may
I,
as
I
well.
am. I'm just not going to fucking have drinks.
But
go eat food anymore
Why
without my
waste
own
the
glass.
money doing this? And why don't we just go like when you go see your next doctor? they just swab you and you've just got one on file with you. Oh, you want to
That-
have your
That one,
SIM
I think
card?
I'm
But
protected
you're
by
okay
the
with them having your DNA on file without consent. And here would be like, well, you just
So-
need to give your consent.
when you leave your DNA in a public place, consent is out the door, in my opinion.
But it's not though. Like you don't consent to it.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I left it there willingly, and I left it. If I go to a bar and I say I want to buy a beer, and I want to buy this glass, and I'm leaving with my fingerprints and my DNA, if that is an option
That-
from going forward, from this case going forward, right? Okay, that's perfectly fine. But I willingly leave it there. I trust that the establishment is just going to wash it and hand it to the next
but
Gavin
that's-
and Pierre that go for a drink.
That's the thing
But-
is that you trust that they are going to do that.
And that's why people suck. And I avoid places and people.
Yes, but this
Well,
is
there's-
exactly why people suck and why
Yeah.
we have
So-
rights.
Yeah. But so where do your rights stop and start in this scenario? So
Well,
do you
they-
need consent for anything and everything way above what you decide to leave there? Because you left that
But
establishment
you're not
knowing,
though.
yeah,
So why do they need a warrant when they want to, like, if they think that I did a thing, why do they need a warrant? Why can't they just come up and go, you have to do this? Because I
Well,
don't have to give it to them.
no, but you willingly leaving
It's not,
your
it's
saliva
not though.
on a
You're
cup
not,
is different.
but there's no reasonable expectation for that to happen.
No, but I mean, if you're potentially a shady person, you'll probably wipe everything
But-
and do whatever, right? So I'm not
this is- but
saying
this
that
is
I
the,
want to
like,
give my DNA.
I have nothing to hide. So yes, you can go through all of my stuff. Because now they have it. Now what do they do with it? Do they keep it on file? Do they have to destroy it within 10 days if they determine that you're not the person?
Right. So that's a
Because
whole
now-
separate conversation of what we're talking about.
But they should never have collected it in the first place. That's because they're using it like this, where they've now found somebody that's connected to them. And so they didn't even catch the person. And this is what Ian's saying. They
So-
caught a relative and then through that are able to do this. And
Right. So now
none
you're
of this
talking
is
about,
done,
oh,
in my
and I
opinion,
don't
legally.
I don't disagree, but then at that point, me throwing my garbage out should not be someone be able to grab it, check anything about it.
The same thing.
Sorry.
They're
Well,
not
throwing your
supposed to.
You
garbage-
said something.
The throwing out your garbage is the exact same process as leaving a drink behind in the restaurant. It's just you willingly left your DNA on the garbage, right? So they should be able to collect it. I mean,
Well, Technically,
does-
they can.
where does it end, right?
Well-
I mean, they could
No, like-
technically go through a person's garbage, yes, but not
Yes.
125 people's garbage based on the hunch that they might
Exactly.
get a lead somewhere.
No, but it doesn't matter. If they decide on garbage day, they think they live in this vicinity.
Yes,
So you
They could do
going
that.
through,
but
yeah,
they
so they
can't
can
do
do that.
that
how's it
without
any different?
well,
Because they
okay.
don't know where those people live, for one. The Kurdish people. It's just
Right, so
completely
they could
random
easily-
sampling.
Right?
But you can't
But-
do that. You can't just go, well, you know what would be really great is if like once a week we went out for garbage day and collected everyone's DNA so we knew that everyone lived here. It's not illegal for us to do this because they put it out in public. And now we have a DNA sampling of geographically where everybody was week to week to week to week to week. And now if there's a crime that happens, we can do that. That is a massive violation of everyone's rights because you are treating all of those innocent people as a criminal.
100%.
But you just said that if I go have a drink at a bar or I go get some tea, that it's okay. It's the same thing because they could just go to every restaurant and sample all of the glasses. And again, like you're saying that they haven't done anything wrong and that you willingly do this because you're out in public and you've left the glass behind.
Yeah,
So they could
burn
do
your
that, and
garbage
now they've
and don't go out
developed,
to bars.
but that's not a reasonable way to live. So there's no reasonable expectation like that. Like that's why
No,
they
but-
need warrants.
But
It-
I'm
as
just
much
saying,
as-
it's. Go ahead, Ian.
Well, as much as we'd all like to go Greek wedding every time we go to a restaurant and smash glasses
Yeah.
on the floor and take a sledgehammer to the toilet after you pissed in it and everything else, and not realistic, like Gavin was saying, right?
Yeah,
No matter if you're a shitty
it's-
person or not, you shouldn't have to do that.
No, I don't disagree that you should have to. I'm just saying, technically, they didn't technically, whether I ethically think it's right or not, they didn't break any laws.
They
Right
did.
now,
They
No.
absolutely did.
Unreasonable search and seizure for or
Yeah.
whatever the Canadian equivalent is, but
Yeah.
right, privacy rights, which again, Canada, but it's just like, yeah, they're supposed to have a warrant for a specific person at a specific time and for a specific reason.
Yeah. And that might mean that they get, like if they're like, well, it was somebody that was in this room at this time and it's down to these three people and we need to determine who it was. Like if the three of us all went to the same place and a murder happened and they're like, well, we have video of them walking in, but like, and we have DNA that was left on the body. We just need to know which one of the three of them. They could get a warrant for the three of us because that's specific. And then they would go, aha, he's the killer because his DNA matches the evidence left at the scene of the crime. But to just
Agreed.
blanket go willy-nilly and go, we're going to just collect this DNA without even telling these people, that is a massive violation of people's rights. That's no different than them driving up and down the street with like, intense fucking microphones and those like little dishes and listening to everybody's conversation that they're having in their house. Like they can
Right.
do that, but that doesn't mean that they should be able to, or like can in the eyes of the law. Like physically, like there's the technology exists to do it. But you're saying that's the same thing then, because well, if they can just
No.
pick it up on these microphones and hear what everyone's saying.
Right. So that's different than me having a conversation while I'm walking down the street, me having a conversation in my house. Right. I'm
How
putting
though?
myself out. Why? Because you're putting yourself in a public space where
But
eyes and ears,
if they
whether
can
it
if
be the
they can
cops.
hear if they can hear that conversation and they're in a public space, whether you're
Yeah.
in a public space or a private space, they're in the public space.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm having that conversation in a private area.
Doesn't
I have a
matter.
drink at home, right? And you break into my house when I go to bed because I'm lazy and I didn't want to do dishes, and you steal my glass and get my DNA that way. That's completely different
But then
than
it's
me
no
going
different than
somewhere.
you drinking something or eating something and putting it in the garbage and putting it out in front of your home. If they're just happen to be going by and they have the thing, or like
But
they
I
happen to
put
be
that
interrupting
to
your,
public property. I put that
but
away for the public
the
works to
the
take it
audio
away
waves
and
are on
dispose of.
public property. They're
Yeah,
on
but my
public property.
conversation.
Doesn't matter.
No, but the radio waves in comparison to me walking down the road while I'm walking my dog,
No different.
and me and someone talking about, something illicit or illegal that we did is completely different than someone
Okay, you're on
closing all
your
the
front
doors.
lawn. You're on your front lawn mowing the or lawn, right? And
Yeah,
you're
no,
speaking out loud.
yeah,
Somebody standing on the other side of the fence can
yeah,
overhear you, right?
yeah.
Is your private
No,
conversation or not? Well, you're on
no,
private property.
yeah. You
It's
made
no
that
different.
you made that public by being loud enough for someone on public property to hear.
Well,
If
but
I am
this
inside my house and you want to sit outside and use your fancy technology to sneak into my house to hear something, those are two different scenarios. Me being in my backyard talking about how much
but we're
I
not
want to hang.
sneaking in. We're listening from public property.
Yeah, so you used something to
Well,
enhance being capable of listening to what I'm
and they're
doing
using something
compared
to get your DNA. Like there's a
yeah,
science process that goes along with
that you
that. So
left somewhere within
I
public compared to me
it is
having
a
it
massive
in my
violation,
private
and
property.
that's why this is all going to court. Like,
I don't disagree that it's a violation, but I'm just saying
but
you
you're
willingly
agreeing
left
that
it
it's a
somewhere.
violation, but at the same time you're saying that it's okay and that you would have no problem if it happened to you. Like you can't have it both ways. Either
Yes,
it's
that's
not a
why I don't.
violation.
Yeah, I don't agree with it. I'm not saying it's a violation. I'm saying I don't agree with it. If you willingly leave something that can be traced back to you in public, that's your own doing.
Well, we will see how this all goes, but I have a feeling that
Yeah,
these cops are going to be in big trouble.
but I doubt it. They're gonna have absolutely nothing. Case is gonna
Well,
go to fucking whatever, and
they'll get demoted for a
all they're
year.
gonna do. Well, it depends. Are they a diversity hire or not?
Yeah. Well, just to be sure, in the meantime, Greek weddings every time we go out.
Yeah,
Just
smash
smash.
or bring your own fucking cutlery and your own Lysol wipes and clean your own fucking dishes. Like, I got nothing to
Yeah.
hide. I don't want anybody to have my stuff, but I'm not
well,
worried about anything.
Using that
Like,
argument though, if you could say I have nothing to say, so I don't care if I have free speech. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing is, it's just because you have nothing to hide is irrelevant. The fact that you still
Yeah.
should maintain your right to privacy, not willingly give it up.
I agree, but I mean, we all know highly unlikely, but it is a thing that someone somewhere could easily acquire something when we go out somewhere. So it's like where's the responsibility? Like where's that line drawn of me having my right to privacy and me going into public places? Where
Well,
do
but
we draw
it's
that
not
line?
just,
Where do we make the
it's
thing?
they're collecting it. They're the ones that are violating it because you have a reasonable expectation that
Yeah,
this
but
isn't going to happen.
so we have a reasonable expectation, but like where's that? I don't want to say set in stone, but you guys get what I mean, right? Like so you
It comes
expect
down
going
to they don't have a warrant to do it. The
right.
warrant
So
is what gives them probable cause, or like they need probable cause to get the warrant, and the warrant is what gives them the legal right to suspend my rights. At least currently in the system that we have, I don't necessarily agree with that either because, you know,
so where
my
where do
rights, but
where do you draw the line on private rights and public rights?
well, but
Because now
like,
we're getting down that slope. We're
well, no. So if someone wants to take a picture of me while I'm out in public, I can't really do anything about that. But if the government, like if random person wants to collect my DNA, there's not a whole lot I can do about that either. But the
right, but that
government, which is what our rights protect us against, is the government decides to do this and do this en masse to the entire population and for no real reason, because they don't necessarily suspect these people. They're casting too large of a net. That's the problem. Like that would be the same as them going into an area and going, well, all of them white guys with beards. Let's just round them up and ask them questions.
Actually, I
I'm
have a
having,
better
bro.
better scenario to think about, or maybe to discuss. Say during the course of this T DNA collection,
Yeah.
they don't just discover the suspect they're looking for, which is the murder of this young girl. What happens if they discover a cold case file from way back when that has they were completely unexpected, didn't expect to find that at all, but maybe one of the women involved had robbed a bank 20 years ago or something, and matched the DNA evidence left behind on a a money bag or something. So what do you do then? Because now they weren't even intending to look for that specific person or that specific crime. They're looking for a different crime, but they solved a different one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You willingly left your DNA somewhere. Understanding the concepts, whether you agree with it or not, that this could be picked up. Um, it is what it is. That's why I don't like going places and talking to peoples. So just stay at home, shut down all
Well,
fucking bars, and we wouldn't have this fucking scenario. Make your fucking tea at home, just like Ian does, and my wife does, and like, or just bring your own glass. Bring a solo cup in your pocket, order a beer. If you're that worried and paranoid about it, pour your drink into the red solo cup, and when you leave, take the cup home and put it in your fire pit.
well, what the skin, like the dander you left behind, all your dead skin falling off, and your hairs, like your eyebrow hairs that fell
Hence,
on the table, and
hence why fuck people. Stay home.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
and that's
like
why
But
Pierre
also
became a
like,
recluse.
yeah.
yeah,
But
but like,
also like fuck them for going and breaking the law and doing something they're not supposed to.
right, so,
Like I'm all for, like I said, putting shitty people behind bars, but doing it at the expense of innocent people is a price that is too high to pay. Like I want
right,
all
so
all of the pedos to end up in a wood chipper, like
yeah,
all of them, every single
yeah,
one of them.
and
But,
and yeah,
and I hate to say this, if it violates the rights of a single innocent person, that price is too high to pay.
right. So now let's say switch this whole scenario. They checked 150 people's DNA. They found one that matches. If all 149 were ever scrubbed from whatever due to the scenario they're doing, is this still okay?
No, I don't care if out of that 150 people whose DNA that they randomly managed to collect, of 149 of them are criminals, but for something other than what they were looking for,
No, I'm
are
not
off the
saying other
streets.
criminals.
I'm just saying, no, but
right,
I'm just saying that like,
Even if they are.
even if
Yeah.
149 of the 150 are criminals that are caught for other things that they weren't intentionally looking for are caught and are off the streets, because there is that single person whose rights are violated in this, I am not okay with this.
Because let's turn the argument around on them. Our body, our choice, right?
Yeah.
In which
Hashtag
case,
me too.
yeah,
Yes.
no,
I can
I mean,
finally
like,
use it.
for once we can find some common ground, that Venn diagram with the liberals, except for it looks like a pair of binoculars. It's basically just a tiny little overlap. It's like, yeah, my
Yeah.
body, my choice. Because
Yeah.
like again, you know, like because where does it end? If the government has autonomy or free reign of your body, where would you like that to end? You know what I mean? Like if they can do whatever they want with your bodily fluids or your DNA, well then maybe just to solve diseases, they could just randomly throw something into your system because it's, you know, it's no big deal. It's still not hurting you, right?
Are we talking about the jab?
No, I'm just saying anything. Like,
Okay.
where does your body autonomy end? Like, you have a right to your DNA privacy, just like anything else. And if they
Yeah.
can randomly take that body autonomy away from you, where would you like that to end?
Yeah.
So I'll, you know, like for example, like, you know, the extreme case I try and use as a healthcare thing. Maybe the company your employer wants to save money, so they make you have a mandatory vasectomy after one kid, or you know, the government decides there's too many people, so they give forced sterilizations. That's been done before. I mean, so body autonomy is a major issue, and so you know, it starts small, just like anything else, and always gets bigger, right? So if you give them a lead on this, at
Yeah.
what point is it no longer acceptable for them to have like free reign
Yeah.
of
Because if
your
they can
body?
just
No,
collect it whenever they feel like it, they're going to collect it whenever they feel like it, and they're going to start saving it, and they're going to start creating lists. And
that's my thing. So if that save was not an option, where they, excuse me, I've had quite a few to drink. So let's say those 150, they have whatever reasons, right? They found someone that's related to someone. So those other 149 people, they ran it. It's not a match to the scenario, right? We are all worried about our DNA being safe. If that DNA was disregarded, never registered that, like, hey, we already ran this before, like, it they never collected. That's a little bit better of a scenario than keeping it on file. I'm not saying it's a win. I'm just saying it's a better scenario than them keeping everything on file, just like they did when they sold 23andMe or Ancestry to, you know, the cold case file that does everything that nobody wants to talk about and everybody disregards. Right.
I guess we have to
Someone
agree
had
to
to sign
disagree
off.
on this, but
Yeah, but someone had to sign off saying, "Hey, technically, you're not doing anything illegal." So I'm not
Well, somebody had to
disregarding that.
sign off, but they don't care if it's illegal or not, clearly.
Right.
So
So I'm just
yeah,
saying, like, technically, they didn't break a law. I don't
but
necessarily
they
agree
did.
with it.
but they
That's
did.
the thing. They did.
That's why it's a news story.
Yeah. If they didn't break the law, yeah, we wouldn't be talking about it. They absolutely did. All right. Well, we will agree to disagree on this one, but
100%.
if you've listened to the show this long, you deserve a discount. RagnarOkTactical.ca. Use the code Patriot at checkout. Pierre, where can people find you?
You can find me here Monday nights most times. Sunday nights where I will talk about what you should stock up on for the economic collapse and hanging politicians by the toes. On YouTube's, Facebook's Canadian Prepper Podcast. If you want some swag, off the wall customizing at Gmail. Potentially some of the socialist medias, we might have shut all that down. I got no clue. But message me and you'll find me somewhere.
All right. Ian,
Make it
where
happen.
can people find you?
All right, you can Sunday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Same thing, Canadian Prepper Podcast. Email is theislandretreat@gmail.com. Keep an eye out next week. I should be hopefully getting published on the Sean Newman podcast for a little interview. So that's a short-term one. And yeah, that just the Gilded app for Patriot because
Now.
I'm banned everywhere else
For now.
Yeah. Well,
for now.
apologies to Rod. He was busy donating his DNA to various causes, so he couldn't make it onto the show. Excuse me, it's burping there. But you know, just a reminder, to everyone else that you are a small fringe minority